Welcome to Monkey Off My Backlog, the podcast where we exercise our pop culture demons by tackling our media to-do lists 1 week at a time. I'm your host, Sam Morris, and with me are my co-hosts, Andy Bowman.
Hello.
And Tessa Suela.
Hello.
This week, Andy has a happy ending. Tessa avoids causative action, and I do a sneak attack. So, guys, this is episode 6. Which by BBC standards means we've completed an entire season of work and we don't have to do this again for another year. So
does that mean we get paid?
No. No. So I just thought it would be a good opportunity now that we're at our first season finale to be clear, this is not a first season finale. We'll be back next week. But I thought it would be a really good time to just talk about some of the stuff that because we don't just take monkeys off our backlog all the time. We're actually enjoying things that are new, what little there is left of it at this point. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about a couple of things that have been non-monkeys for us recently. And so I wanted to start with you, Andy. I know that you recently had the opportunity to watch a mid-90s classic film. And I just wanted to hear what your thoughts about that and maybe anything else that you've been.
All right, so I saw for the first time Clueless.
Gasp. It's my non-judgmental gasp.
Yeah, so Clueless was a lot more fun than I thought it would be, especially when I heard that it was just a retelling or an adaptation of Emma, which we watched Emma a little while ago.
Emma period or the Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah, the period piece one, not the Gwyneth Paltrow one. But anyway, Clueless was a perfectly cute little movie. It felt a lot like 10 Things I Hate About You.
I actually kind of think Clueless might work better for the story than a lot of the adaptations of Emma, just because it sort of leans into what a terrible person she is.
Yeah. Another one that's a non-monkey, because I was just in the room and this movie started and I sat and watched it, is called The Half of It.
Oh, it's that's on our list.
Netflix movie directed by Alice Wu. It's such a beautiful little movie. It's one of those movies you start out, you're like, okay, I get where this is going, teen coming of age, and then it just becomes so good and well written, and you just keep watching it. It's really good. Really good LBGT and Asian American representation in it. So watch that too. What about you guys? What do you get?
We've been sort of doing this thing. I think I may have mentioned this in an earlier episode of the podcast. We've been doing this thing where we both put 5 movies on we write down the titles of 5 movies on slips of paper and put them into a giant stein. And whenever we're just thinking, oh, tonight's a movie night, we draw one of them out. The only rule is that the movie has to be made within the last 5 years. So some of them, I guess, could be technically considered monkeys. We watched The Five Bloods last night.
Yeah.
And it was quite good. I really enjoyed it. I don't always enjoy Spike Lee's aesthetic, but I actually really enjoyed this film.
It was much better. We both agree it was much better than BlacKkKlansman.
And DeRoy Lindo, for those who are Good Fight fans, was he on The Good Wife too?
He was not.
Okay, so
but
The Good
been
Fight.
In a ton of other stuff.
Right.
Too.
I know him from The Good Fight. He is fantastic in it. The other thing that I did was I recently read Caraval, which is a YA book. I think it's the first book in a series. It reminded me a lot of The Night Circus, but in the best possible way. So if you're looking for like a good sort of gothic YA book to read, Caraval was pretty good. I enjoyed that a lot.
And we just saw the second season finale of Harley Quinn. That's such a good show. I read that it has not been renewed, and that's how.
I just feel like it's such a weird time for non-monkey media right now, because a lot of stuff is in limbo because of the pandemic. A lot of stuff has been renewed, but we don't really know when it's going to come out because they can't film or anything like that. So a lot of television and movies are sort of on hold for now. We have a long-standing conversation about whether it'll be Mulan or Black Widow first, like which Tenet. I'm sorry, Tenet. Like who's gonna fold first on just releasing direct to video on one of those two things.
Well, it won't be Mr. Movie Theater Experience. I think he's like at this point quintupled down.
Right, and so I think this actually is a really good time to check things off of your list, because there just isn't a lot of new things that are coming out. There are a few new things that are coming out. Umbrella Academy has a release date.
Bill and Ted has been moved up a week.
Yeah, so it's
question mark.
There are some new things coming out, and we're trying to watch them as they come out. But it is definitely one of those weird times in pop culture where we're not getting a lot of new things, and we don't really know when some of the new things will happen again.
Now, Sam, I do want to assuage or take some of your fears away. DC is having a gigantic virtual Comic-Con event in August.
Mm-hmm.
That will probably be when they actually announce a renewal for Harley Quinn.
Oh, good.
So,
good. And
we were worried.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will also announce the new solo Superman movie.
Oh yes, definitely the new solo Superman movie that's totally going to get made, because it's this is a conversation I have on my other podcast all the time. A Superman movie is one of the easiest things to do, especially in this time period that we're living in now, and they just won't do it.
I don't know. I think if Tessa will have to pick me up off the floor if they actually, this rumor about Michael Keaton coming back. Have you heard that one? That's great.
No, that's fascinating.
Yeah. He's going to be his Batman is going to be the DC Nick Fury.
Perhaps.
Oh, okay. I like that.
I mean, it immediately sounds like a great idea.
All right. Should we get into this conversation?
We should. I do want to mention, I don't think we talked about it. I don't know if you guys have talked about it on Geek 101, but Joel Schumacher recently passed away. And actually, you guys having watched Clueless, I remember the conversation after that. Batman and Robin, I think we definitely need to watch that and talk about it soon.
I've never seen it.
Oh, man. Okay. Andy, tell us about Happy Endings.
Okay, I watched a show that is on Hulu called Happy Endings. Now, it's one of these shows that has a pretty big cult following. It's just a sitcom. It's a multi-camera sitcom. So it's not quite like How I Met Your Mother. It's more like a New Girl, just in its general feel. This is a sitcom from 2011, and it just has such a big cult following. You know, it's one of those shows that on the television subreddits, it's always being like, oh, why don't people talk about Happy Endings as much? It's so good. So I sat down and I gave it a shot.
In my head, Happy Endings and Cougar Town are the same show. Who's in Happy Endings again? Remind me.
So, no, like, this is the thing. I also, in my head, grouped them together because they're sitcoms with such gigantic followings. But what we have, the cast, the main character, the guy in charge of everything, who is the Ted Mosby from How I Met Your Mother, is a man by the name of Zachary Knighton, who I'm honestly not familiar with any of his other works. But the other cast is Alicia Cuthbert, who fans of 24 will know. You have Adam Pally as well. You have Damon Wayans Jr. You have an actress actress by the name of Eliza Coupe, who was big in Scrubs and big in the recent Future Man. And you have Casey Wilson, who is like, there's so many of these characters or actors that you just recognize their face. Like you know they're from somewhere. So it's a weird sitcom to watch because you do feel like you've seen these characters or these actors in everything.
Yeah, so you mentioned Cuthbert from 24. Was she attacked by a cougar in this show?
Not yet.
So
Not
this is
yet.
not, again, not Cougar Town, I understand, but she has been
Right.
attacked by a cougar in the past.
Yes. And she's also, in The Ranch, the Netflix sitcom of questionable quality.
I was about to say, a lot of these actors that you're bringing up have been on like they're sitcom people.
Casey Wilson is an SNL person, I believe. That is correct.
Yeah, and there's a New Girl alum too.
Yeah, Coach.
Coach, yeah. So there seems like that a lot of these people are also have done sitcoms before and have sort of crossed over.
Right. Yeah. It definitely feels that way. Now, there is a big problem. So I started watching. I watched the first episode on Hulu, then I watched the second episode on Hulu, and it felt so vapid and it kind of just like not the right time and place for this, right? You have a group of friends who are a little more wealthy. 5 of them are white. They're all kind of slightly bad people. It feels like Friends or How I Met Your Mother, and it didn't feel like the right time for it. And that was the first problem I had, is it just didn't click with me immediately. And what's weird is the premise of the show is that Elisha Cuthbert and Zachary Knighton's characters are going to get married. They're at the wedding chapel. They have known each other for so long, and when the vows come in, all of a sudden a guy bursts down the door to the church. He's wearing rollerblades and no shirt, and he's like, "No, you don't love him. You told me come with me." And Elisha Cuthbert runs away to go with this man, and it just leaves this main character, Dave, played by Zachary Knighton, completely devastated. And it's this group of friends dealing with that fallout. And of course, in sitcom fashion, Elisha Cuthbert shows right up. Again, she went on the honeymoon by herself, and there's some great lines about how she's like, well, of course it was already paid for. Of course I went. And Zachary Knighton's character is very frustrated with this because he just got dumped out of nowhere, and it's a typical sitcom setup. The pilot feels super piloty, and then all of a sudden, the second episode jumps into Zachary Knighton's character deciding it is time for him to get back out there after having his heart ripped out a mere week earlier, and dating a girl who is much younger than him. And part of the joke and the reveal at the end of the episode is that she's like, "I feel like no one takes you seriously when you're in high school." And yeah, it's really funny. But here's the thing. I found out because amazingly smart and much more put together person than me, Martha from the Four Nations Report, the Avatar podcast, pointed out to me that all the episodes aired out of order.
Oh yeah, the
back when we
perennial
did
problem.
that. Yeah.
When I watched on Hulu the second episode, I was really watching the 7th episode.
Okay.
Wait, so Hulu has them in the right order, but people watch them in the wrong order.
No, Hulu has them in the wrong order.
I
Hulu has
see.
them in the order they aired, and I understand that's super easy for Hulu. However, this is a show where the writing is so tight and pointed that missing character development for an episode makes it feel like a sitcom. It makes it feel much more like an early 90s sitcom than it does what it is. And that's a problem. We don't see the character development. We don't see things changing. So after the second episode, and after finding this out, and like just being like, man, I don't feel okay watching the rest of the show. Like, I don't want to watch the rest of the show. Maybe I'm just gonna call it at this. Like, it's fine. It's a functional sitcom, but it's not gripping me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told, hey, you need to watch episode 10. And then you need to watch episode 11. And then you need to watch episode 4. And bouncing back and forth, right? And that's when it clicked. That's when I started getting, one, how funny this show is, how there are those jokes that carry over from episode to episode that are very subtle, very quiet. are very just like kind of in the background, and it's not funny the first time. It's not funny the second time, but when it pops up the third time and you don't expect it, it is hilarious because it popped up 4 episodes later.
So is there a list that someone listening to this podcast could go find of the episodes in the right order if they were wanting to watch it?
So here's another a fun thing about the show that doesn't quite feel right, though. Because this was made in 2011, there are some jokes that feel a little bit more mean-spirited. Adam Pally's character is gay, but he is also has the mentality and the emotional maturity of just like a college frat dude, right? Like he is not the stereotypical gay guy, and he's slightly out of shape. So there's a lot of like weirdly like pointed fat jokes about him, even though he is probably like maybe 10 pounds overweight. It feels weird making fat jokes about people who aren't fat.
Yeah. So
if it's just mean.
It's never really right to make a fat joke.
Right. And I will say that this show captures a group of friends who know each other so well and are able to pointedly make fun of each other. But at the same time, just so much of it feels weird. Also, Adam Pally is as far as I can tell, he is a heterosexual man. So it's weird that he's playing a gay character. He is by far the star of the show. He steals all the hilarious lines. He has a great line about needing to watch The Road twice, and The Road was not nearly as funny the second time around.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Right. It also, as a sitcom, the styling is... These people are all dorks in their own way, and the show really embraces that dorkdom of them, so it's fun. It's fun to see that, and they're not nearly as bad as the cast of Seinfeld, as far as just, being people you don't want to hang out with, but they are totally willing to be terrible human beings. At one point, Damon Wayans' character decides that because Adam Pally is gay, well, he would of course love this gay dude who works at his office. So he hooks him up, and of course there's nothing. This gay dude is the most boring person. So Adam Pally calls him a gayist, that he thinks all gay people like the same things and do the same things. And this starts a conversation that keeps hitting up about who has it worse, a gay man or a black man. And there are some very funny moments in that. It's a weird show to recommend. If you like How I Met Your Mother, if you like network sitcoms, this is top tier network sitcom. The writing is clever. There are definitely problematic elements. It is rather broad in its appeal, and that's good. It is not nearly as good as something like Community, or I think 30 Rock is one of the greatest sitcoms of all time. However, I've also watched a few episodes, and very problematic. Anyway.
Yeah. Tessa just finished her first inaugural watch through of The Office recently. And, of course, you watch that, and overall, I think it holds up about as well as it possibly could, but...
Do you think that's true, though, for, like, a lot of sitcoms? Is that they just, like, the type of humor that the sitcom relies on, do you think it will ever... Like, is there a sitcom that has aged well? I mean, I think all sitcoms have sort of that problematic element to them, and the further you get away from them, I think the more you can kind of see the flaws.
I will always go up to bat for Community. Like, I have rewatched Community so many times. I probably mentioned just watching Community. It's really interesting. I'm sure in 10 years I'll see some cringeworthy moments, but for right now, Community is really good. And happy endings is good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm going to continue watching it. It's a feel good 20-minute show. You just have to watch it in the right order, and that is so weird. Also, some of these episodes aired on the same day, so they aired like in an hour block, but they're both out of order. Like they're not.
How do you really feel about this?
Yeah. So, recommend. It's a cautious recommend. This is the like definition of just like a white people show. It is TVPG, which is kind of interesting. So it was like an 8 o'clock sitcom.
Is that 8 o'clock Central or Eastern time?
Probably Eastern.
Yeah. Okay. So the family hour is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, this. Oh, I did find out this weekend. Netflix has a segment of a family movie night, and one of the movies up there is God's Not Dead, and I could not stop laughing.
So cautious recommend.
Cautious recommend. You know, this isn't for everyone. You have to be in the right mind space, and it also just feels like it's vapid, and so cautious recommend. It's fun. It's fun. Anyway, Tessa, what did you do?
I watched the film Primer, which Primer is a film that exists on a lot of sci-fi best of lists. So it's been sort of on my radar for a while. I also watched another film by Shane Carruth, who I will talk about a lot during this particular segment. I watched another film by him. I watched another film by him in a sci-fi class that I took several years ago called Upstream Color. And Upstream Color was not my favorite thing that we watched in that class, but it did have some really memorable imagery, and it had a kind of an interesting premise. So I was willing to give Primer a chance. It's a much earlier film of Shane Carruth's, plus the fact that a lot of people, it's sort of a cult classic. There's a cult following around it amongst sci-fi fans. It came out in 2004 originally. And one of the notable things about it is that it was made with a $7,000 budget. Like, it was literally made with a 5-man crew. It's extremely low budget. It is pretty well made for the budget that it is. Some of the sound mixing is not the greatest. I did have to watch it with subtitles because there were parts of the film that I couldn't understand what people were saying. But for a low budget film, this is pretty well put together. It was written, directed, produced, edited, and scored by Shane Carruth, who also stars in the film along with David Sullivan. So it's it's definitely an auteur type of film. Shane Carruth definitely has a very specific angle that he brings to his films, and this is definitely pretty typical of that angle. He controls almost every part of the film production. But basically, Primer, at its most simple, at the basic premise of Primer, it's a film about two friends that are running a tech startup out of a garage who accidentally discover time travel. Emphasis on the accident part of the discovering time travel. So, I don't really want to get into the details of the plot, because like any time travel movie, most of the film is about how does time travel even work. So I don't want to get too far into it, but basically it's sort of about teasing out the morally ambiguous problems that you encounter when you start time traveling.
Okay. Well, did you enjoy this film?
So, before I answer this question, I have two contextualizations that I want to go over. The first one is, I think this is what I was trying to say the other week when I was talking about Jaws. There is a way in which you can think a film is technically great and also interesting without enjoying it, or really thinking it's a good film, if that makes sense. I can appreciate what Shane Carruth is doing in this film, and I really like the idea, since a lot of media is being made by only a handful of entertainment companies at this point. Like, Disney is taking over sci-fi as we know it in a lot of ways. I appreciate the ability of someone to make a movie like this, to be able to do something with such a low budget and to have control over it in this way. However, I think that there are a lot of sort of issues with the film that I'll get into. The other thing I wanted to say, too, is that I generally like heady science fiction. I really liked Annihilation when it came out. I really like Arrival, Under the Skin, which I know Sam hates, but I thought it was a very good film. I really enjoyed it. But I feel like a lot of sci-fi and fantasy films in the US especially have way too much exposition in them. I like weird movies with unexplained things happening in the background or in the world building. I love Dark Crystal, for an example, just because it has so many things that are happening in the background that are just never explained by anybody or anything in the film. And so I'll put it this way. I'll put it in Kubrick terms. If you liked Doctor Strangelove more than you liked 2001: A Space Odyssey, you will not like Primer. Primer is very dedicated to not explaining things.
And if you liked Eyes Wide Shut best, would this be a good movie?
No,
Okay.
it would not. There's
All
not
right.
enough sex in it
Okay.
for you to
And
like this movie.
Also, Tom Cruise is not in this movie.
Tom Cruise is also not in this movie. So those are the two contextualizations I want to say. This is a very this posits itself as a very pretentious, heady sci-fi film, and if you are not into that, you will not like this film at all. Part of that comes from the hard sci-fi of this film. I go back and forth about hard sci-fi. I am not the audience for hard sci-fi. I am not a physics person, nor am I an engineer. So hard sci-fi for me just ends up being very confusing in a lot of ways. There's a lot of jargon in this film. He specifically said he didn't want to dumb down the jargon because he wanted it to sound like these two characters knew, like could communicate with each other and knew what they were talking about. So there's a lot of that in this film. If you don't like that, you will not like this film.
I just have a comment here because I have 3 movies that I feel like I'm taking crazy pills about because I think that they are utterly pretentious. And here's the thing. I like pretentious movies. There are lots of pretentious movies that other people are like, how could you ever watch that? And I'm like, no, are you kidding me? Mother was great.
That's your go-to
But-
pretentious movie.
Aronofsky forever.
Right. But Upstream Color is my number 2 most hated pretentious movie. I could not stand it. Now, you mentioned my number 1 most hated pretentious movie, Tessa, Under the Skin.
I love Under the Skin.
I despise that. I despise it
So
much,
bad.
Which is it's a shame because I really love the director's other movie, Sexy Beast.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, Sexy Beast was so good. And by the way, the third pretentious movie is Tree of Life.
So you're not.
I have
yeah.
seen all of those movies, and I hate them all. Well
Right.
done.
Right. So I have not seen Primer. I am so cautious about it because I do like pretentious movies. But Upstream Color had such a visceral reaction.
So well, let me describe some more things to you and see if any of this appeals to you. So part of the thing, and I will gesture towards Sam on this because Sam is a big time travel film nerd. He has written a lot about it, and the principles of time travel in this movie are interesting. Like, the premise is really interesting. The process of time travel here are inspired by Feynman diagrams. So basically, time travel is an A to B loop in the film, in which you have to you go into this box and you become your own double, and then you have to wait out like what your double is doing so you don't accidentally cause like a causative action. It's really interesting. I had to look at several diagrams to understand what they were talking about. So this is definitely not a movie. If you're not familiar with the science, you may have to do some extra work to understand what's happening in this film. I don't want to get too much into specifics because the half of the film is about explaining how this works, and then the other half of the film is about how these two guys' lives are sort of imploded by having access to time travel. So if any of that appeals to you, you might like this movie. It is also only 77 minutes long. I did not feel like it needed to be a minute longer. I was good with where it was as far as the pacing and all of that.
Now, when a movie is that short, do you feel like your characters are there? Like, do you feel like there's character development?
So that was my big objection to the film. Again, I don't feel like I am necessarily part of the audience of this film because of the hard sci-fi aspect of it. But for me, a good story usually, but not always, involves good characters and good character development. That's why I'm here for these particular stories. I would rather it be a very simple plot and really interesting characters than the other way around. This is definitely the opposite. It's a very convoluted plot, but the characters are basically just two suburban white dudes. And to me, that's not shorthand for character development. So Shane Carruth seems to assume that everybody views the world the same way that he does. And so he skips a lot of important character work as a result. He just assumes that you're going to know who these people are based on what they do and based on what they say. And I think that that's a mistake, especially when you're dealing with a movie that really centers around how this process of time travel affects friendship and how it affects the human psyche.
What year did this come out?
2004.
2004. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. We thanks to movies like Interstellar and Avengers Endgame, we've given up on this kind of time travel. It's not cool anymore. Everybody's doing quantum, multiverse, multi-stream time travel stuff, and so this is very old.
I want you to do a whole podcast where you just talk about different kinds of time travel, because I think it's real. I do think time travel is fascinating, like the different theories about how it could happen and like how it would work and could you even do it. But this film just didn't really give me very much besides, look at this really technical version of time travel. Isn't this weird?
Now, Tessa, I do have a time travel movie to recommend to you.
Okay.
It is called Predestination.
I have not seen that. I have heard of it, but I have not seen it.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke is great. It's a time travel movie. Give it a watch.
Okay. So I guess if I were to say recommend to anyone, I would not personally recommend this movie. I don't know why it's on so many sci-fi lists. Like, as soon as I watched it, I was like, well, that was interesting. I mean, I guess I get why some people think it would be great. So I will just say this. If you are a physics nerd, or you're an engineer, or if you just don't like sci-fi because it isn't accurate enough for you, or you just want your sci-fi to be about two suburban white dudes doing morally ambiguous things in garages, you will probably like this movie. But if you're not in that demographic, I don't really think there's much for you here.
I don't know. As a suburban white guy who is obsessed with time travel, I have zero interest in watching this movie based on what you said.
Just watch, if you're not one of those above things that I described, just watch Back to the Future again. Watch Bill and Ted. It'll be way more fun, and you won't feel like you're hitting your head against a brick wall with character development.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Okay, so Sam, throwing it to you. Tell us about. Oh, I'm so excited! I forgot what you were doing this week. Tell us about Kim's Convenience.
So, Kim's Convenience is a television show, a Canadian television show that began in October 2016. It just completed its 4th season and has been renewed for a couple of more. So, Kim's Convenience is a Toronto Korean family comedy based on a play by Inge Choi. Inge Choi, along with co-showrunner, producer, creator Kevin White, turned it into a television show. And Inge Choi describes the show as so it's set primarily in a convenience store. It's a Kim's Convenience is the name of the store. It's owned by Mr. Kim, and Choi's own description is it's about the slow process of reconciliation between a father and son. And so I've watched the first season. The reconciliation is slow. It takes place over the entire course of the series. Tessa has seen the whole thing. I've only seen the first season. So it's very much a slow burn. But the conceit of the show is it's set in a convenience store. It's funny, lots of culture clash, but it's very warm-hearted.
So I just want everyone to know, for the record, this was not an instance of Netflix cheating. I watched Kim's Convenience when Sam was not interested in watching Kim's Convenience. And then the more I watched the show, the more I was like, you need to watch this show. You'll really, really like it. And so what made you want to watch this show?
And when she says not interested, I want to point out that that I first heard about this show through the podcast Pop Culture Happy Hour. And at the time, it was being compared to Fresh Off the Boat, which Tessa discovered on her own and watched on her own and eventually dragged me in. And what they said was, this is better. It's better funny, better hearted, better depth, better considerations of what it is to be an Asian family in that kind of fish out of water situation. And it's better. But Tessa wanted to watch it. I was not in the headspace. I was not ready to start watching it, so she did. But I was always interested in it. So there. I would say, by the way, I think it's important to bring up, Schitt's Creek is also produced by CBC Television in Canada. If you watch Schitt's Creek, if you like Schitt's Creek, this is the same kind of comedy, the same kind of spirit. They're two very different shows, but that's really the comparison I would make.
So when you say warm comedy, what do you mean by that exactly? Like, can you give us examples or describe it?
Not happy endings. From what I gather, not The Office, not just about anything you would see on network TV. It's not about making fun of each other for a laugh. Yes, they make fun of each other, but it's not to score a laugh. It's not for a laugh track. There is no laugh track on this show. I like a lot of the things about it. There's some really good moments. The very first episode of the show is called Gay Discount, and it's about Mr. Kim, who owns the store. These two men come in and they want to hang up a flyer about it's Pride, right?
Pride,
the Pride Parade. And he thinks it's an ugly poster, and he doesn't want to hang it up in his store because it's an ugly poster. And he actually meant it's an ugly poster, but of course they take it to mean that he's homophobic. And so all of this ensues, and the only way he can get himself out of this once he realizes what's happened is he'll offer a gay discount. And so they ask him, how will you know who's gay? And he'll say, I know. And they say, you have gaydar? And he says, I have excellent gaydar. And so it's a great gag. There's another very similar one in episode 11. The cold open of each show is something happening in the store, some kind of interaction. The one in episode 11 is great. So there's a lot of things happening. So a black man is at the register with Mr. Kim, and these two women wearing niqabs show up, and he greets them by name, and the man looks at him and says, how do you with and kind of makes a gesture to a face covering, how do you know? And he says, well she always looks at the bell and she always nods her head and names a couple of things. He says, it's not difficult. It's just, you just have to pay attention. And he walks away, and the two women walk up to the man and they say, he only gets it right about 50% of the time, but he tries. That's good comedy. That's comedy that's not going to get ripped off the air in a couple of years because it's culturally insensitive.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think warmth is a really good way of describing this show, because even though there is still conflict. I mean, like on Schitt's Creek, there's still a lot of, with any family, you're going to get conflict, but it's done in a way that sort of affirms that these are people who deeply care about each other, even though they don't always know how to communicate to each other. Yeah,
and of course, as I mentioned earlier, the central conceit of the show is the oldest son, Jung, kind of had a rough growing up and was basically kicked out of the house. He has since, I guess, cleaned up his act. He works for a rental car company, but he's completely estranged from his family. So we have a little bit of a workplace set up too at the rental car company. One of the best secondary characters, his boss, Shannon, is great. But there's an interaction between him and his sister, Janet, who still lives at home. And of course, she's trying to spread her wings and interacting with the family, with her parents in some ways that show conflict. So, there's a lot of things to kind of keep this story going. There's more secondary characters. There's a character named Kimchi, the roommate, who's great. There's the Janet's art school friends. There are the other co-workers at the car rental place. There's the church. There's a lot of good stuff to be had.
And who is Jung played by?
I'm glad you asked. Jung is played by Simu Liu. If you don't know who he is, you will when Shang-Chi comes out in the year 2073.
Whenever Marvel starts making movies again.
Oh, this is actually, this was a big subject on Geek 101 because Shang-Chi currently, as it's projected, will be the first May release of a franchise or sequel movie since Iron Man 1. This is such a big deal that a movie starring amazing Asian American or Asian Canadian actor Simu Liu But 2, there's no, this is not a sequel. It's so exciting. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, and the show is 30-minute episodes too, which I think actually works really well. The writing, it doesn't need to be longer. Like they do more writing in 30 minutes than I think a lot of shows do in an hour too. So it's definitely one that you could easily sit down and watch a couple episodes of. And it's good from the first part, right?
It's on Netflix. Absolutely recommend. Schitt's Creek is on Netflix as well. I think they go. We've been alternating between the two. Watch a season of one, then a season of the other. So
would you recommend?
Where
is this on the list?
Oh yeah, this is a much stronger recommendation than either of you made.
Yeah, both of us were kind of lukewarm in our recommendations, so it's good to end on a good note.
Yeah. Tune in next week. Tessa will watch Steven Universe. Andy will bend some elements with The Last Airbender. And I'll be celebrating the late Adam Schlesinger by finally watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Andy, where are you online?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Hebrews Pale Ale.
Tessa?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Swehla, SWEHLA, Tessa.
Find me on Twitter at Sam_Morris9 and on Letterboxd at ArchieLeach9. Our theme song is Hot Shot by Scott Holmes and can be found on scottholmesmusic.com. Send us your thoughts about the monkeys we've talked about today, the monkeys you crossed off your own lists, monkeys that you'd like to hear us talk about on future episodes, or anything else that comes to mind. Find us on Twitter at monkeybacklog, email us at monkeyoffmybacklog@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.